But I think I want to add something to what Barbara said, that the voice from Africa is saying that we are going to Copenhagen to negotiate for the creation of an adaptation fund to be, managed, by the AU. And then what the women from Africa, we are saying is that surely if there's going to be an adaptation fund for Africa, then about 50% of the fund should be set aside for gender issues, to support women, adapt and mitigate on climate change issues. So we are definite on that, and this is what we are negotiating towards Copenhagen. Thank you.
My name is Fred Matzer from the Alliance for New Humanity. As you can see, I am a man, and I am half of the gender. I think the whole chaos in the world is a reflection of the disorder in our minds and hearts. And being a man, I'm aware that I'm pushed in my youth to play the role of man, to dominate with my physical power and with the power of my mind. And I'm asking you, especially the women, to help me and us to open our hearts for one another. And if we go to the fora in Copenhagen or wherever, help me. And yes, I think men are loaded up with a lot of guilt because they had to know, because they are placed in that position. But we also have a feminine side. We have the power to feel, but we need help. We need help to open our hearts and remind ourselves time and again, we are here because we are all a result of love-making between men and women, where both the physical strength and the power of being vulnerable are at work. There is no life without the power of that vulnerability. And please remind us of that. We are aborted from nature. We're sitting again in a room. We're part of nature. Our inner nature is in air conditioning now. Where are the plants? Where are the animals? We need to be reminded of that. I think if we have a situation in Copenhagen where we invite the outer nature to reflect the inner nature and vice versa, including that power of vulnerability, we may make huge steps. So relieve us from our guilt. So remove the blocks and remind us of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask you a question? Do you have children?
I have.
Do you help look after them?
I do.
Okay, then you're a new man in my book, okay? Because I think that the issue that we haven't really discussed, and that always in my life, for every woman I know who has children, is who takes care of the children. Yeah? And if we're serious about seeing more women at the negotiating table, in cabinets, at the conferences, we need to make sure we always provide crash facilities. I was at Poznan at COP14. No, let me just finish it, yeah? I was at Poznan at COP14 in December last year with my 3-month-old baby. There were no crash facilities. I smuggled her into it. Fortunately, she didn't need to have a delegate card, but because I work on these issues day in, day out, my kids travel with me. I would have brought Sophia, who's 10 months old now, here to this meeting, but there's no crash facilities. And in the wonderful city of Geneva, in the 21st century, there is no one I can ask on short notice to look after a 10-month-old baby. This is the reality of those of us who work on this issue. So if you want talented women to work on climate change, you make damn sure that you have crash facilities. Now, what happens? I couldn't bring my baby. I've got 3 children under 5, so who helps out? My husband. My husband looks after my kids. He does exactly the same work that we do. He travels 1 week. I look after the kids. I travel the other week. He looks after the kids. This is what it's about. And in every single, wherever there is a man or a woman or 2 women or people, 2 parents together who are looking after children and trying to make a go of it, you need to make sure that there is good, affordable, safe, socialized childcare. Because we're going to have this same discussion 20 years down the road when women, like, the 16, 17-year-olds who come up to me and says, Melanie, why are you a feminist? I mean, we've won all the battles. And I'm like, you wait.
But
You
so
just
it is
wait.
about sharing, Malini. It's about sharing, whether it is sharing care of the children or sharing the burden of climate change, the effects of climate change, or any other issue. It is about sharing between men and women.
It's about gender. And I go back to this because
It's
I
about
think that
empowering both men and women.
And gender is one of the biggest analytical breakthroughs that we've had in the last 20 years. Because before, we kept pleading for women's rights. And if you leave men out of the equation, they're not implicated. Gender is the social construction. It's about the roles of men and women and how we engage with each other. Yeah? And if we're not teaching our boys to be caregivers and only breadwinners, we're doing them a disservice. And that's my answer to you.
I'd like to perhaps bring this back to the climate from another point of view. I was having a very interesting discussion yesterday because we talk about climate change and the gentleman from CARE brought up what I thought was a very interesting question about the distinction between, is there a distinction between poverty and climate change? And I was talking yesterday with somebody about whether there's a distinction in my region, in the Arab region, between war and climate change. War is top of the agenda, but in many ways, climate change is a catalyst in both circumstances. I don't think that there's a distinction between them. And I feel that climate change has really brought us to a point now where we have to accept that we're facing the destruction of our planet. I mean, how much more basic can it get? And that brings us to need to accept that we have to do something now. And that's really what is different about Copenhagen. I mean, we've spent years talking about the Millennium Development Goals, and now recent years talking about how we will accept our failure in achieving them. And I think that what differentiates the discussion of climate change is we cannot accept that failure unless we accept that we are willing to destroy ourselves. Jeffrey Sachs talked last year about the fact, exactly again going back to your point, sir, that it's about rich countries needing to take responsibility for the percentage of poor in the world. And 20 years ago, it was sub-Saharan Africa. Today, it still is sub-Saharan Africa. Unless we accept that poverty and breaking the cycle of poverty is central to all our lives, unless we really take the Millennium Development Goals seriously and understand that climate change is driving us now so much faster towards that destruction, I think it's, this whole gender discussion is just a huge part of the solution. It's a solution offered, but again, how do we get it from rhetoric, from all sitting in a room and agreeing with each other, to recognizing that Copenhagen has to be a watershed?
My name is Yahya Luta. I'm from Dubai. Thank you, Princess, for bringing us back to the climate change. I'm coming from a country where 70% of our graduates from the universities are women. And we really have learned a long time ago that giving a woman quota really didn't work that much. In fact, education, which really gave her the push and allocated her in the way she really wanted. My question is, will climate policies focus on women education as a long-term solution to poverty and humanitarian crisis?